Okay, everybody, time for another tutorial. So, in the last tutorial, I showed you how to animate with proxy objects. The problem with proxy objects is that if you were to go ahead and try to animate shape keys, like I have here, for example, if I were to go in and zoom in on this guy's face here, and for example, something as small as animating the shape of his nostrils there, or his eyes opening and closing. Okay, these are shape keys that are active here, but I don't want to have to take the time to open up a scene, but take my word for it, when you open up a scene that has a proxy object character in it, all these things will be blanked out. They'll be there, but you won't be able to access them. They will be grayed out. So, in order to access them, as I showed you in the last tutorial, when you create a proxy object based on a character, in order to animate it but retain all the changes that are made to the original file, you can select the armature, and then you can make it a proxy object. Then you can animate that armature to your heart's content, as long as you cannot edit the armature, but you can animate the armature. Alright, so what we need to do is, since we cannot animate objects, we cannot mess with objects, we cannot mess with their shape keys or anything else, any of their deformers and stuff like that, we need to find a way to go ahead and create part of the armature to control the shape key. Alright, so I'm going to do that in this tutorial. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a bone, and I'm going to give it a special object to represent the bone, in this case a text object like you have here, and then I'm going to associate that bone with the shape key using something called a driver. And once I've done that, those changes will percolate up through the other files that have this object, and I'll show you how that animates. So for example, I've already done one here. As you can see here, I have a bone called which has a special shape called angry, which came from a text object. And as you can see here, when I move this around, it manipulates the shape key when I rotate that. Same thing with this one called sneer. Alright, so as you can see, when I rotate this up and down, he animates his shape key. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at how to do that. Again, this is kind of complex stuff in the sense that there's just a lot of steps. Okay, so the first thing I am going to do is, I'll go to my top view here, and I'm going to create a special shape for the bone we're going to create to drive the shape keys, just so it doesn't look like just any kind of bone. Alright, before I do that, let me select Godzilla's object here, and we are going to create a bone in the armature that's going to drive this shape key called nostrils closed. Okay, so I went to the shape key tab here just so I could remember the name of it. Alright, so let's go ahead, and I put all these little objects on this last layer here. Alright, so I'm going to go and put my, click with my little object cursor here, and hit Shift A and hit text, tab to go into edit mode, and I'll name this nostrils. Alright, tab, no. Scale this little guy down. Alright. Okay, now again, this is just here to give us a custom shape. We don't have to do this part. The technique I will show you will work otherwise, but the reason why I do this is just so that these little bones and stuff we're going to create, it's going to be, obviously it's going to be really weird to remember which bone controls which shape key. So, we created this little guy as a text object, but what you'll find out later is if you use this as a text object, it's not going to drive the, it's not going to show up as a custom shape for the bone later on. So what you have to do is go into Object, and you have to go to Convert to Mesh from Curve Meta Surf Text, Alt-C. Alright? Now that object has been converted into a standard mesh. So if you tab in edit mode, you'll notice that you can no longer edit it as text. It's now a bunch of faces and vertices like as before, all right? But the reason, is that now we can go ahead and use it as a custom shape for the bone. So let's go back to layer 1, all right, and we will select the armature. All right, so now when we tab into edit mode, you'll see here the bones that I already had selected here. Let's go back and forth. So you can see that these bones here, these bones right here on the side of his face, which are parented to his head, that when we tab back and forth from pose to edit, you'll see that they have these custom shapes assigned, all right? So I'm just going to take this one. What I did was I just created a bone. I parented it to his head. I put it onto bone layer 2 so that way I can hide and show these things as need be. All right, and now I'm going to go ahead and hit Shift-D, move this guy down. All right, and let's go to the little bone tab here and give it a new name. Okay, I'm calling it controller_nostrils, all right? All right, you'll see that since I duplicated this from the last one, it's retaining the custom object. So I need to give it, oh, you know what I forgot to do was, I forgot to give this a name that's relevant. So I'll call this nostrils text. All right, so go back to layer 1. Select my armature and tab into edit mode. Well, actually it doesn't matter. And we can select custom shape and type in nostrils and it shows up. Okay, now we have nostrils, all right? So now this little guy this bone here is now associated with this custom shape. And I am going to go back to this layer here and zoom him down a little bit. Okay, you can go ahead and scale this if you wish, doesn't matter. Okay, now we have created a bone with a custom shape, so that's part 1 of the tutorial. I'm going to zero out the rotation on these guys here. All right, you can go ahead and scale these guys down if you wish as well. It doesn't really matter. You can move them around because the reason why well, you'll see in a second here, I associated the manipulation of the shape keys with the rotation so that I could move and scale these things anywhere I wanted to. And that way I was able to get them exactly where I want them without having to worry about. I know some people got like a slider type of setup and stuff. This one, like I said, is like a rotation type setup. All right, so now we want to associate the shape key with the rotation of this bone object. So, for example, if I right-click on the bone called angry and I start rotating it up and down, it's married to the rotation of this drives the shape key of the angry shape. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right-click, I'm going to select the mesh. I'm going to go to the Object Data tab where all the shape keys are stored. I'm going to select the nostrils closed shape key. And then I'm going to go down to where the value is and right-click on this and say Add Driver. All right, now you can see here, what you have to do next is open up your graph editor. As you can see here, the value changed to kind of like a pink color, like a very light purple pink. And so if you go into if you open up your graph editor and you change it from F-curve, what it normally is, to drivers, then you will see these drivers here. Okay, you can see I've already got a couple set up, all right? And so now we have one called nostrils, all right, which is based on the name of that. Okay, and so what we need to do next is we need to select the object that's going to drive that shape key. And so we'll click on this and we will select the Godzilla armature. And then we will put in controller nostrils, okay? And for the type of transformation that we want to drive it, in this case I'm using the Z rotation. I'm using the local space so that way wherever it doesn't matter where everything else moves, it's only, the local space is only what this thing is moving at. You know, basically, if we selected world space, I guess as you're moving the character about, you know, if you were rotating the head, this thing would be rotating as well. It might cause problems. So I'm selecting local space in this case. All right. And the next thing we need to do is change the type from scripted expression to average value. Okay, so I think that's it. So now if we select this guy, oh, there we go, it works. And that's all there is to it. So as you can see here, just rotating that around will make him open and close his nose. Option R to undo the rotations. Another thing that is neat is you can push these values beyond what they are at. By default, they are at 0 and 1. So in this case, they wouldn't make any sense at all to push it past that. But you could, for example, push the minimum value to, for example, -1. And then as you were moving this, you could, for example, flare the nostrils. So the original shape key only goes out to here, but you could, by taking it you know, a step farther, you could, for example, flare. You could create the shape key going past what it normally was. So basically, you're getting like double value out of that one shape key. But in this case, well, actually, in this case, it's not actually too bad. Maybe he wants to go like, he gets really, really pissed off, and then his nostrils for maybe 2 frames or 1 frame flare past what they could actually, you know, physically be at, just for a little bit of exaggeration. So I'm going to leave it at that, actually. So, and the same thing for the angry pose. You could go in, you could select this and say the maximum value could be, for example, 2. And now when we move this, well, you're not seeing it. That's kind of a subtle shape key there, but you could do that if you wish. So let's put this negative. Oops, sorry. Oh, that was because I was doing that one. Okay, let's go back to angry and we'll put the minimum at -1 and the positive at 2. So now we push this thing past what it was normally meant to be. So now I can get really freaking angry, and I can get like kind of sad or whatever. Well, actually, it won't go past what it normally was, but you can see I can go extreme anger here. And of course, if you do this too much, it's just gonna kind of mess your mesh up and stuff, because it wasn't meant to, you know, go that far. But it's nice to know that you can do it if you wish. So I can kind of do. Actually, I'm going to put that one back to where it was. Okay. All right, because that key is, you know, fine the way it was. All right. And again, if you don't like these guys, you can, you know, if you're unhappy with these shape keys, just select that and hit Alt-R, and you will zero out the rotations. All right. So let's save this guy, and we can go back to another. Oops. Another scene here that has this character. It may take it a while to boot up. And okay, here's the guy. Let's just go and show only the layer that we need. There we go. Aha, there he is. He's laying on the ground and stuff. So as you can see here, before I created this scene, the only one that existed, the only shape that existed was, or the only custom bone shape that existed was called angry. But now, as you can see here, I can go ahead and start manipulating him. And again, you can see that I can push those nostrils past 100%, like I did before. And so that's pretty much easy. Oh, the other nice thing is that because we put this on its own separate layer, remember when I created this, I created these bones on bone layer 2. So if you go to the bone tab here, armature tab, I'm sorry, and you can see here the armatures have their own separate layers. So you can uncheck that layer, so you can only work on those when you need to. So, for example, obviously, at times like this, when you're just working on, the body of this character here. Oops. All right. Oops. Let's just show just these parts. Yeah, just those two guys. Whoop. You can see that it gets a bit hard to deal with. There's no reason to show those things until you're ready to animate the face. So, because every time I create those new bones, I went ahead and I put them on bone layer 2. I can just go ahead and deselect. I can select bone layer 1, and then when I'm ready, I can just select bone layer 2, and then I'm ready to do just the facial animation. All right. So that was a long, convoluted explanation, but it's kind of a long, convoluted thing. But as you can see here, the power is quite large, because if we go to another, let's open up another one. Here is another file that uses the same character, and hopefully I referenced him in on that. And as you can see here, yep. Again, this file here originally, it's linking into that Godzilla number 14 that I showed you before. And before when I was originally creating this file, I only had the angry shape key set up, shape key driven by a bone setup. But as you can see here, the power of this is that we added these guys, and then every time we do that, no matter what changes we make to these driven shape keys, they will propagate through every single scene that has Godzilla in it, that is, using the link instead of append to do this scene. Oh, I'm giving away a little bit of spoilers. Looks like Godzilla is losing to King Ghidorah right now. But who knows what will happen at the end of the film. Will he succeed or not? It's up to you to find out. So, anyway, let's go back and open up the original Godzilla file. Alrighty. And let's go kind of through this step by step. Alright, so what we did was, we originally, we created a new shape object, which we did by creating a text object, and then we converted it to a mesh. Because, like I said, text objects or other kind of like curves and things like that will not work. If you just had like a box or a circle or something like that, then yeah, it would work, because that's already a mesh. That step was, we convert it into a mesh so that it would be able to be used as a custom shape. We went back here to the armature, went into tab into edit mode, and then we created a bone, and we gave it a custom shape, and then we went and selected the object that has the shape keys, and let's see here, and then as you can see here, we've already got most of these set up here. And then we went ahead and we right-clicked on not on the shape key itself, because as you can see, that's not going to give you anything. You right-click on the value and say, oops. Right-click on the value, say Add Driver, and then you go into your graph editor, and you select your drivers section of the graph editor. Right. You go ahead and you select the bone or the object that you're going to use as your driving object. Then you select the type of channel. If you want the rotation, the scale, the location. You select the space that you want to move in this case, local space. And then don't forget, under type, we selected average value. All right, and of course, we went ahead and played around with the minimum and maximum values of the shape key. And again, this is something you can use. You can use this technique even without using all this proxy object crap and stuff like that. If you want to, you can use this to, if you don't want to go in here, you could get rid of this panel entirely and just have little kind of objects here, that represent the different shape keys. And they don't have to be text objects. They could be anything. For example, later on, I'm going to create little eyeball objects up here to represent the left and right eyes closing. All right, so I just didn't have time to model them and stuff for this tutorial. But okay, so it's been long-winded and stuff, but I haven't had a chance to make too many tutorials for you. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope you get a lot out of it. People ask me a ton of questions. I don't have time to answer them all the time. I really want to start doing a mailbag and stuff. What can I say? Life just gets in the way, and things are extremely busy. I know I keep saying that in every tutorial. It's absolutely true. And, you know, I'm doing as much as I can for you guys. So, anyway, I hope this stuff works out for you.